Hello, guys. Welcome once again to our platform which we use to share ideas. We are so happy today and so glad that
I am Nefeli and this is Anthony, and today we are going to talk about a very important topic.
we have some topics that we want to talk about. But firstly, today we want to talk about the Namibia genocide. And are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so what is it all about?
It is also known as the Herero and Nama genocide that happened in 1904 to 1908. And it was a genocide that was committed by the Germans who occupied the land, and because the start a war with Namibians, and the Namibians were winning the war, then they decided to have a deadly genocide against them to end their resistance and um, their organization.
So the genocide came as a result of the resistance posed against the Germans by what the localities of Namibia.
I think it came because the Germans realized that they are not winning.
Okay, so they decided to
So
end the whole thing
they decided to end the whole thing and
by killing the people.
brutally, like not only killing but also forcing them into the desert. And so many people died just because they didn't have they just died in the desert. So, and after that, their remains were shipped to Germany, and they forced the women to remove um, remove the flesh from the bone and ship the bones inside the boxes to Germany. So there is this movie, the Der Mensch, which talks about this, but it has a very wide perspectives because the person who is in the focus, the main character, is a white anthropologist, which I find very critical. Like you could do it in a better way to narrate people's story.
Okay, so these skeletons or these remains of the people of Namibia that were shipped back to Germany in boxes, in skeleton, what were they used for?
They used it for like something called phrenology, like that anthropologists try to categorize the skeletons in bodies and have an archive and have like university full of skeletons and remains and also ethnological museums and different collections. So they try to do like a um, scientific measurement and make anthropological claims based on that. Also medical claims and other others scientific fields try to use these things and use these remains for their own. But the biggest thing, I think they just use it as the system of oppression, or to show that for us you're not human, so we can just take your remains.
Okay.
And for a lot of people, this has a very big spiritual signification that you cannot bury the people who died in their own land, but also bury them next to their family and their kinspeople. So it has a very big impact till today. And there are a lot of people, especially the ones who, in the Maji Maji rebellion, Maji Maji war in what we call today Tanzania, they also try to bring the remains from Germany back to the graves of their ancestors because they believe that there is a very big spiritual
impact or something.
Impact in their whole family's life, and that a lot of bad things that happen to them
Yeah, I
are
mean,
caused.
you already try to answer the second question I have here, because now you talk about this genocide in details,
Mm,
trying to make us understand both the physical and the spiritual impact it could have had.
mhm.
And also, so my second question would be, does this genocide, this Namibia genocide, have effect till today? I mean, you already tried to talk
I'm
about some
not.
of the effects.
I think I don't have the expertise to say so,
Mhm.
but I think that for people like Herrera and Nama, there have been a lot of scholars, activists, artists, and people who talk about what the effects are for them and what this means for them. Because for a lot of people, something happens in the past, for instance, and then they say, okay, just the past, so it's nothing. But when something happens, then the, there is an aftermath, and even after the aftermath, this still impacts your life, or like the economical, political situation, and even when there is no like quote unquote remuneration, or like no healing of what happened, then
You're talking about the trauma?
I talk about the trauma, but I also talk about like the impact of these two states that exist today, like Namibia and Germany. For instance, in Germany, this genocide is not talked about, is not public in the public discourse, and when it was because of this aid money that they gave as a gesture of goodwill, it's just the same positionality of white people just giving aid, but what they took, they will never give it back. Understand what I
Okay.
mean?
Okay. So,
So it's like you just paint yourself in a nice color, but at the end you still are this person in a way.
okay. So, what you're trying to say is that the effect of this is something that cannot just be said, this is the effect, and that's it. The
No,
effect is diverse. You can.
that's also the reason why people say there is no effect of this. So there is this kind of massacres, this kind of very like the German colonialism is one of the most brutal ones for killings and mass taking skeletons and removing this and
The
doing that,
skin and
like is the one of the most brutal among all of them. Even all of them are very brutal, of course, but there is a very low there
publicity too.
there is no public opinion about this. It's not the public knowledge. It's something, if you study anthropology or history, and everybody else, it seems like it has no impact on their life, even though it puts them into a position where they have so much more power.
Um, Before I ask the next question, I
Mhm.
would make a comment about the effect of something. Now, from what I gathered, at least you mentioned about the trauma. And I mean, it translates to the generation upon generation,
Mm,
and also people who believe solely in the spirituality, the souls or the spirit of the ancestors wouldn't have rest. It's also to them, in this belief, it is an effect, and also taking their lands and the economic trajectory that it has placed on the side of the Germans, the political position, the leadership position it gave to the oppressing side. It will bring us to the next question, which is, um, do German people really understand this? Do the young school leavers know about this?
no, mostly it's not talked about in school, even though there are different like organizations who try to bring it into the school and try to sensitize the teachers and bring out free information about this. It's something that is not talked about, and it is connected to the way Germany portrays itself vis-a-vis the very like the Shoah and the Holocaust. So this machinery of killing so many Jews and Roma and communists and the rest of them. They just take this thing and put it in the middle of their of brutality and say that this is the maximum brutality that somebody can go. And also this has a very big impact on the way other genocides are also discussed about or silenced. For example, like the Sri Lankan genocide, like the Tamil people, or the Kosovans, and like the in Bosnian. So
So
also that's also what silences and puts so much shade onto Namibia, because they say, because it was not in their land, but it was committed by us, but we don't care, and it's something so far, because it's 1904 to 1908, and it's so far and back then. So it's a whole kind of political frame to say that we don't want to have this responsibility. We also don't want to associate ourselves with this kind of brutality.
but of course they
But
are not proud of it.
but some surely are proud, but some, of course, are not proud. They are ashamed, but they, because they are so ashamed, maybe they just want to turn the side and say, "Okay, I don't see it." But for somebody who is in Namibia, for instance, in Windhoek, and there are so many street names, so many foods, so many things that are German, and this Germanness has an impact in their life, and they see it. And also the genocide has impact in their life, even if some people don't want to see it, or some people don't have an impact. it's it's a whole, like it's a whole order, like the colonial order of things, that it's not just interrupted because you don't look at it.
Okay. So it could be either it's a strategy not to transfer this knowledge to their children. They don't want them to be aware of what their ancestors may have done. But of course, in one way or the other, they would know, because the lollipop that they licked today surely came from somewhere. Yeah, I think some of these topics are not really getting the light, the
The
voices
attention it needs.
it needs.
It's about also whiteness, like how whiteness is constructed in this context of, like, there is only one big brutality and one big atrocity, which is the Shoah, and beyond that, that it cannot exist. For instance, what I said with Sri Lanka, that,
Mm-mm.
for instance, this Buddhist monks and the Sri Lankan people who killed and
Named a lot of people.
oppress and displace so many Tamils, because they wanted to have the state of Sri Lanka for themselves and did not want the Tamil to have any kind of life. Like, it's about life. So you kill somebody because you don't want them to live, in a way. And you kill their culture, you kill their language, you kill them, you.
Yeah, I can see we can go on and on to talk about these things, but the purpose of our program, we are being so succinct with these topics. So, like you said a lot of things. Do you have any referencing point to some of all these topics, like this, like our main topic, which
Mhm.
is Namibia genocide? Do you have somebody or people who talk about this?
Yeah, I did one podcast with Eleanor Schauman, who is a PhD, who wrote her PhD about the impact of Karakul sheep. So these are sheep that were breeded in Halle, in a city of East Germany, um, and they were shipped to Namibia, and there they made up a lot of their fur industry. So because they have very specific print, that the fur of these sheep look in a very specific way, that's why they shipped them to Namibia and started this fur industry there. And a lot of people who own the farms and who deal with this fur are German descendants, partly other farm owners are also Namibians, but mostly white people. But she looked at this impact of this. They imported their culture and like wurst and foods like sausage and things, but also they imported and took with them animals. And it she looks at this, what this means for this kind of colonization, that for instance they bring birds with them, or they bring, is not just they go somewhere and occupy it and take the people's money and resources, but they also bring something that is so quote unquote foreign to their land, and then make it like
Impose it on the people.
yeah, impose it on the people and start a whole economic sphere around this, because they saw that these ships come from Afghanistan and they live there in this kind of situations, like the way the environment is there. And they see that in Namibia maybe it's similar, so they say, okay, let us take these ships to Namibia and have produce so much fur there and have so much money
Okay.
because of that. So then they became a one
Yeah.
fur industry like this, but people were not that, it's not their tradition, it's not their
So
animals.
she looks at the economic or the economic activities of the Germans in Namibia. That's what they look at in this way.
One important thing is that this meat, the meat of these sheep, was not eaten by the Germans, but the people, the Namibians who are farm workers, would eat that meat. So there is also this kind of classism with racism that interact with each other
So the
there.
only reason they imported it is to make money from it, not because they want to eat the meat.
No, they do not want to eat the meat. They want to have the fur, because that's what is the special thing about this karakul sheep.
What is the fur? What is it? What does it mean?
Like the fur, the skin of them,
They use it to make clothes or what?
to use to make clothes and bag and um,
Okay.
all
So
this
it's
kind
just
of.
about, okay, we get it. So this woman talks about Namibia and in German in this economic way.
Mhm.
She didn't go deeply into about the genocide or something like that.
No.
Okay. So, and before you last question that I asked you that you answer, you talked about the language. So it brought me to the last question I have for you today.
Mhm.
I know the ones we talked about a little almost brought like tears in our eyes because it's something that is so sensitive. But
Yes.
I mean, yeah, we need to talk about it because we talk about these things not because we want to reopen the old wounds, but also to let people understand why things are in the way it is today.
Mhm.
But the last question I have for you is about language. So the language is, I mean, is the most popular something on earth because everybody uses a language for communication.
Mhm.
But I mean, how has it affected people and what is the importance of language? That is what we want to talk about today. And my question specifically is how has language deprived people? Has it deprived a lot of people many things?
Mhm.
And also, did it in any way disadvantaged some people?
Mhm.
So, did you get my question or I should rephrase it?
I get your question very well.
Okay.
First of all, language is always something that has to do with politics.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's also something so private. For instance, people say, okay, my language, I can express myself better, I can produce more knowledge, I can talk about my emotions, um, I can say everything I like, and also the whole cosmology of language. So the whole way of seeing the world through the specific language is has a very big impact on the way we formulate things, the way we produce knowledge, the way we experience even the world around us and what happens with us and our relationships with the people and with ourselves too. So the point of colonization and language, so having French and Portuguese and English and other language as the official language of the states, deprive people from having their own language and learn, for instance, physics and maths in their own language. But the question then is, because of this kind of multilinguistical space, what is somebody's language? Because there are people who say, yeah, even though I'm Yoruba, my language is English. There are a lot of different perspectives on that, but one thing that it has deprived people is from making knowledge in their own language. So, for instance, writing in Igbo about the history of Morocco, or the history of Niger, or the history of whatever, like creating academic knowledge in Igbo, or having universities that teach Igbo and that you can get your diploma in Igbo and work with this language. So it has deprived people from having an access to respect. Like, people see this language as a local language, even though there are national languages like Greek that only 10 million people speak, and it's a national language. We use it in the whole country, and with our bureaucracy, with everything. So there is this kind of localization and what they call like the provincialization of Africa. They make Africa a province, and they make also the languages something local, even though it could be a global standing. Like, it could be that people need to speak Igbo to understand things.
So what you're saying is that, like you mentioned, physics, chemistry, biology, science subjects while in secondary school or something, that some people didn't understand these topics or these subjects deeply simply because they were taught in a foreign language to them. Did it
Yes, the
disadvantage?
thing is, the thing, yes, I think it surely disadvantages some people. And the thing is that every language has its own logic. So according to this logic, you also make the education work or not work.
Mhm.
So it's not just you say something in this language and then you translate it to the other and then it's the same. Because, for instance, there is something that makes sense in Greek that would not make sense in Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah, because every language has its own history, and the history of the people, it's of the people is inscribed in the language and in the way we use the words. And because language is something alive, we always change it. We always, it's like a breathing, it's like a lung. It opens and like does this, it's alive, it takes up space, it changes, it takes new words in, it takes, so it's like, and when you don't allow this to happen
Do
because
you
you
remember that
put the
man?
language
Do
into
you
an,
remember what that man said in Berlin in that seminar? The man that was saying that the white people, they always use a language to suppress foreigners because they want to put them in this kind of disadvantaged position where they cannot have an easy access to them. They use
yes,
language like to alienate themselves on top because they say, okay, now you don't know the language, you cannot achieve this or you cannot do this and that. Then
yeah,
you don't have a say because you don't know what to say, you are afraid to talk. Just like in a place where people are having meeting
hmm,
and they are speaking a language you don't understand, you don't have much to communicate or to contribute because even though you have a lot of things to talk in your head, but because of the difficulty communicating using the local language,
hmm,
you see yourself in this kind of keeping your mouth shut or through the meeting. So do you see it this way? Do you agree with him?
yes, I mean, language is also a way to oppress people, and it has always been, because it also, I mean, in language there is also this section of classism. So you speak like this very highly or academically, so you are from this class, or you don't speak so highly, so you are from lower class or you're poorer. So there is also this kind of thing, the classism that intersect there. But what you mean, the Sinthujan was saying in English in Berlin, this book that he presented with Moshtari, I think is like the meaning of that is that a lot of people are forced to learn the language of a specific place when they go there. For instance, if refugees come to Germany, they have to learn it. But if it's an expat that is white and comes from US or from UK, they can just live with English. So if a person who is from Kenya who speaks English is forced to learn the language so that he can speak to them, to the people of the different different bureaucrats in all around, and also have a job. But somebody who is an expat doesn't need to do it because of his race and because of his class and because of the way people see him.
Yeah,
So this is what he
yeah,
meant.
yeah.
So this is
This
also what
what you said
oppression means
is
because
I think this is also part of what yeah, the issue of language, in my own opinion, is very sensitive because you cannot say that, for example, in Germany, in if you go to their offices, even though they understand the language English,
Mhm,
for example, I mean the English immigrants, not the French immigrants. I'm talking about specifically if I would use Nigerians, for example, or people from India
mhm,
who are here in Germany, they came a long way with their English
mhm,
here. Now you go to offices and you speak, the Germans say, oh, we use German
mhm.
as official language. Even though the officer there understands what you're talking about, but they still pretend that they don't understand. I mean, in a way, I can say this is a way of protecting their culture because they don't want their language to die. Sorry, to
Mhm.
wither away. Like they don't want to just use foreign language like English in their country or in the bureaucracy. But also, in a way, they also use this kind of a systematic way to push you away as a foreigner because they don't want you to be very close to them. Because if they give you an opportunity to speak your language with them, then it can even be that you have the upper hand because now you have a very high command in the language more than most of them, and they don't want you to trap them in that position where they will have to do to you.
So it's about power and oppression. It's about like them being in a bureau. They need to give you something. They need to serve you,
Mhm.
but they choose to manifest and demonstrate their power by saying, "We cannot speak English to you because English is not an official language here. But we can. You have to know the German, and you have to be forced to be like this." But if it's a person that is, for instance, US white person, so maybe also German descendant or Italian descendant or Greek descendant or I don't
Or
know.
Spanish.
Yes, then it's okay if he speaks English with us because after he's from the US and US is such a big
Respected.
power.
Okay.
So it's about all this kind of power dynamics for me.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Okay. Um. So, if we should summarize this, summarize what we have said so far, um, not about the genocide in Namibia. I'm talking about language to be specific. Language plays a vital role in humans' way of knowing, way of dealing, and
Mhm.
way of producing, and also way of
Even the
taking charge, the
even the
power.
way how our brain functions with different languages, our brain different brain areas are active, so our brain also develops in different ways when we speak different languages.
Yeah, I also heard about this. In fact, I was reading, even though I don't have a deep knowledge about this, but I think I have knowledge about certain children, like Auslanders, like foreigners who their children grew up with. Some speak the father's language, some speak mother's language, and they have to deal with. I'm talking about in a situation where a Ghanaian marries like a Yoruba person.
Mhm.
Now, the father is Yoruba, the wife is maybe speaks Lua, one language in Africa like that,
You mean speak like Fanti or
or
Tree
or
or
Ashanti or Three or anything. Now the child has to grow up dealing with the Ashanti language and also the Yoruba
You
language.
mean tree
It can be three or anything.
or fancy or Ewe or
Yeah.
any Ghanaian
So
language?
now the child brain is dealing with different things at a time. So how do you compare the knowledge or the depth of grasping, you know what I mean, to grasp knowledge between a child like a German child who
Yeah.
has to deal with only German language at that early stage.
Somehow, like language also has to do with the way we belong to this world, like our root and how we project ourselves into this world and where we like the geography where we live, like this local aspect. So I think that it's a very difficult question when it comes to somebody who is black who lives in Germany, because from the one side this Yoruba and tree he speaks gives him a space of belonging and a space of knowing things about himself, his culture, his people, and everything. But at the same time, it makes him be between the two. So he may he may not be able to understand Europe in like maths in Yoruba as well as he understands maths in German, because math in German he learns it in the school like this. So I think everybody has a different path and everybody has a different way, but it's it's a lot like in Europe, these languages of three, of Igbo, of Yoruba, of Swahili, of um, Kikongo, of
All the mirrors, you don't need to start.
yeah. I mean, so
Many
many
lang-
many languages. I mean, that's what I mean. Are not seen as something important or something that will bring you further in this capitalistic society of like you need to have a job and you need to have a career and these kind of things. But it's very important to know the language for yourself, I
After
think,
all, just like
because
to identify in
yes,
your culture.
to identify and to know that there is a place you belong, even though you may belong also here, you also belong somewhere else. And there is also another knowledge and another way of being that does not have to do anything with white people or with whiteness, and is only about you and how you want it to be.
Okay, so wrapping it up from this angle, language is very, very important. Language makes creates a kind of sense of belonging,
Yes.
and its
And identity.
identity. Also, language it can also use as a power dynamics. It can also um, use as a means of suppressing the other and
Yeah.
categorizing the other. Language also, um, I mean, in this world that we live today, the language that have gotten the power suppresses swallows other languages and makes people to think that okay, it's good you can learn these languages of yours as a means of identifying yourself as your culture. But even though you have learned this language, you still need the bigger language to survive or to strive. For example,
Mm-hmm.
you can learn Yoruba if you're a child born in Italy or in France.
Mm.
You can learn Hausa, Fulani, you can learn Tree, and then Louis and all these languages. But yeah, to identify yourself as the origin of this of all these places. But even though that you have learned these languages, you still need to learn the French or the English, as the case may be, to get a bureaucratic jobs to place yourself in the international outlook.
Mm-hmm.
So language is also part of not just speaking the language, also knowing the culture of the people. For example, I will give you an example like in German context, you when you see um, some Germans, you just speak the language, but the emphasis of the brain behind the language, or the cultural aspect of the language is also very important. Because if a German says unglaublich, it's very in English unbelievable, but how do the English people perceive these two languages? Germans, when they say unglaublich, you mean that maybe a German came to your room, it was so dirty, or maybe you did something so wrong. You say unglaublich.
Mm.
It is not just a case of when you tell somebody a story and the person just make an exclamation and say unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But there is something beneath just the normal explanation of the language. There is a cultural perspective
Mm-hmm.
to the language, which is very, very vital. So when you learn language, it gives you a deep understanding
Of
about
the history and the practice of people, of the logic, of the way things are in the common sense, people, the way people organize themselves, the way people think about themselves in this world, like how they position themselves, and also like it's a lot about the context. So different languages have a different context. So there's different politics of German than the politics of French, because for instance German colonialists also used Swahili as their official language in their colonies, and and in comparison to that, French always imposed the French and always used, also in France, always used French. There is no English in
yeah. I
there.
mean, we said it before. It's a power way of imposing authority over others and
Yes.
swallowing their own culture,
Yes.
which is we start from eating up the language.
Yeah.
Okay,
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being with us today, and also
for listening to our
our
language thoughts.
and also the Namibia genocide. Please
Yes.
don't cry so much about that first topic. It's just that we just want to talk about it. Comment below in the comment section. Tell us what you think and tell us how we can improve, and write about the topic that interests you. If you don't understand anything from us, you can ask us. We can always answer you every time. Thank you so much. See you next time, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. So let's switch. You asked me about this.
Okay. Pizza, 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 pizza. Look what they say here. Born in November 16, 1930, Professor Chinua Achebe.
No time. Let's go.
So, welcome back to our YouTube video. Welcome back. So, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today we're gonna talk about several topics. I'm here with Anthony. My name is Nefeli.
As you can see, I'm Anthony. Thank you so much for being our audience today.
So, the first question I have for you.
You didn't even ask me if I'm ready or not.
Are you ready?
Almost ready. Yeah, no problem. Ask.
So, there are different things I want to ask you, and I want your serious opinion about.
Okay.
So, can jealousy and competition lead to success?
Please, can you ask it again? Ask this question again.
So, the first question is, can jealousy and competition lead to success? What is your opinion about this?
Yeah, okay. I will take the second, which is competition, and then before I come back to jealousy. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I would say what I understand by competition, okay, I can divide it into two. Competition, I can see negative competition and positive competition.
Mm-hmm.
If you compete with someone positively, good as in free will, like good mind, with good mind, it can lead to success. For example, if you have your neighbor, you watch TVs a lot, you're on the social media a lot, you sleep a lot, and your neighbor or your roommates, or like what the young people do, that like they live in Vigay, and this person always wash him or herself in the morning and go to the library to study. I mean, two of you are studying the same course, I mean, or you're writing something on a project, and this person does this thing every time, and you wake up one day, you want to be like this person, you want to compete. So anytime this person goes away, you also go away. So this person has set a pedestal like for you. Then when you do something like this, you can compete and it leads to success. So you see yourself achieving something that ordinarily you wouldn't have achieved because you decided to compete with this person. Also, um, I have also seen some, I mean, this is an experience, statistically wise, but that is not to say that I have, it is the way it is in everywhere, but see some polygamous families where um, a lot of children, they compete themselves because of what um, happened in their lives when they are so young. Maybe you see some people with the first daughter telling the last daughter or the second daughter that you insulted me. I'm going to make sure that you see what we will become in future. This kind of statement, like two sisters fighting, like the first sister or the second sister tells the younger sister that I'm going to marry a rich husband. I'm going to get a good job. I don't know. Now, this kind of statements strike a kind of competition to them. Maybe one decided to work so hard, the other decided not to work so hard. Then at the end of the day, it was competition that led to the other making it so big in life or something like that. Another thing is also also there is one woman I know when she was about to retire, she told two of her sons that now two of you are studying, the other guy is so serious, the other one is not so serious. But look, anybody who passes exam will be trained in the school. So this woman made this statement to encourage the children, but now it became like um, she's just struck something like a competition for these two people. Now, because I happened to meet one of the sons, the guy is a medical doctor. He said that it was the statement that the mother made that made him to buckle up and put so much effort in life because he wanted to make sure that he will be the one that will be trained in the school. So he started reading his books in the night, going to the library, making sure that he passes the exams so that the last opportunity will be used in his own course. You know what I mean? And you saw him became very successful. The elder brother is not even didn't finish school because I think he didn't couldn't pass his what they would call abitur here, like something like that.
Like A levels.
Yeah. So in this way, competition can lead to success. But also, when you compete with someone negatively, it will bring you pain because when you compete with someone who is better than
you feel that you're not enough.
you can only compete, trying to be better than that person. But instead of you to work something in your pace, you compete so much, it depresses the person. So in this way, competition will bring nothing but the pain to you. So you see, that is the way I can say about competition. On your second question, which is
it's about jealousy.
Jealousy, um, jealousy, as it sounds negative. Jealousy is negative, but also, like I said about competition, somebody, in fact, let me not. I don't know how to put this in my mouth. Jealousy sounds negative.
So jealousy does not lead to success. Like for instance,
jealousy can like lead to jealousy can make someone to start if they cannot be like the next person, they turn to hatred. Jealousy can make someone to hate somebody. Because, for example, if you are jealous of somebody, instead of you to pray and hope to get your life together like that person you are jealous of, you see yourself trying to tarnish that person's image, trying to body shame the person, trying to fight the person, trying to reveal the bad side of that person to the public. You begin to fight this person even when the person is not fighting you. So invariably, you are causing more harm to yourself than in most occasions the person you are fighting may not even notice that you're fighting him or her. So it is a war that you have created for yourself. You know what I mean? So jealousy is not good. Instead of being jealous to someone, try to come closer to the person, make the person your friend, try to learn. I mean, there are so many people who are successful in life who just like somebody and decide to make the person a role model. And you make the person a role model and you see yourself more successful even than the person. So jealousy, as it sounds, is not good. You don't need to be jealous to succeed. Like what somebody does, appreciate it. Try work so hard
To have it.
exactly. That is how I would say it. Do you have any question again?
Very, very good words. So now I would like to ask you the second question
Mm-hmm.
about pretense. Do you think that pretense can lead to a good behavior or even success? So we're still in this successful
I mean,
section. So
it's
I would also like you to explain to us what success means to
okay.
you. Like from a capitalistic way, success is to have money, to be established in a job. But from a personal or spiritual success could be that you are good with God and you have a path where you communicate with Him, or something else
Yeah.
where you align to your gift of life, or you're aligned to the universe, or something like
I
this.
think I think this is like two questions. Like on one hand, to talk about what success means for me. On the other hand, to talk about pretense, if it does lead to this success. Okay, success, as you said, can be seen or defined. It can mean different things for different people. For example, a man who um, suffered so much in somebody's house as a tenant, upon completing his own building, is a success for him because now he doesn't need to pay rent or to be insulted by a landlord or something. For him now, he's not a house owner. It's a success for him. Um, Somebody who has a bicycle and buys a good car, for him, there is a movement from this to point A to point B for him or for her. So it's a success. Somebody who went to school and had so much failure in a course, maybe he's studying geography or whatever it is, and he passes his course and graduated, is a success. Okay. Somebody also who is a sinner who repented and know how not to go back to sins with God is also successful. So success is moving from point A to point B,
So movement.
especially when the current position is what you like. Because you cannot be successful at the same time you still regret.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
You regret what you've done.
Yes. So it gives you a kind of peace. If you look at it holistically, like in the world purview, like they say Africa is not successful yet because maybe they don't have good roads, they don't have good hospital, they don't have good housing that can accommodate a lot of people. A lot of people don't have clothing, so the government is still having manifestos every time they want to come to power by saying, "Oh, we're going to give you good water system, we're going to give you this and that." Until we do this, then we don't have success. So they are trying to move from, I mean, from poverty to something in a capitalistic way.
Yeah.
So that not say that's.
But who impoverished and made this situation to be like that? That's the question.
I don't want to deviate, but I might come back to this your question.
Yeah.
But looking at it from what you have said, if pretense, my mother has a friend, and that friend, well, the woman's son, when we were young, you go to school with your chair and your table, and when school is closed,
You take it with you.
you take it back home. It's called locker. Now the mother gave the son money to convey this locker to school. But those days during break period, you want to buy a lollipop, you want to buy ice cream, you want to buy moi. So the guy decided to pocket the money and carry the locker with the head. But that day, unfortunately for him, the mom was going to
the market
and passed in a car and saw the son when he was going, carrying the locker on the head. So the mom came back and said, "Oh, my son, I hope the driver that carried your locker didn't drive so bad on the road and entered into gallop to spoil your locker. I hope everything went smoothly." The guy paused for a second, but he said, "Mom, I have a confession. Although you gave me money to carry my locker to the school, but that he didn't actually call a taxi for the locker, that he carried it on his head to school." The mom said, "Okay, I saw you on the road. I just wanted to know if you would lie or tell lies." So in this situation, this guy bought trust from the mom from that onset. And everything he says, the mother believed him. You know what I mean? But now, this guy is also a pretender. A pretender. And
but at the end, he did not pretend. He just
no.
said to her that the truth is that I did not.
Yeah, the guy is also, I'm trying to say another thing. In this guy's real life, he is also a pretender sometimes. Sometimes he pretends to the mom. But because he knows that the mom trusts him. You know what I mean? But how do I know that he's a pretender? He said something to me one day. He said that that same mother told him that sometimes people pretend and they see themselves turning to new leaves. For example, if somebody marries a woman that he had lied that he does not drink alcohol or that he does not smoke, this kind of thing, when people are getting new relationship, the guy might like a woman and you pretend that that he does not drink alcohol or he does not smoke, or maybe you meet a woman that is a vegetarian and the guy lied that he does not eat meat, something like that. At first, it sounds like a pretend. He pretended to win this person's love. But every time they are together, remember, when somebody smokes weed or something, the woman will perceive it. You know what I mean? Now, okay, the guy say, "Okay, now I've lied to this woman. What do I need to do?" He will start trying to live up by what he has, his lies. So he wouldn't want to smoke in front of this woman. He starts pretending. Now, if he was smoking every day, it will reduce because he will now need to smoke only when the woman is not around. Remember?
So it leads to good behavior.
So by this pretense, he will start stopping this behavior until before he could know it, he stopped doing it. So that pretense led to what? For him. Is it not good behavior? But this is not to say that sometimes it happens the other way, and after marriage, after 5 years, the man will go back to his behavior. But at that meantime, there are some things people pretend. Like people who masturbate a lot, they don't masturbate in front of their lovers. They do it when they are not around. But when they are around, they will not do it. And when they stop it, before you could know it, if they were masturbating so much, they stop it. You can go on and say so many
So
things.
this less masturbation leads to good behavior or success.
That is not my topic. I'm saying if people see masturbation as a bad thing and they are not proud of it, because I've seen a couple of people who told me that they masturbate, but they are not proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if they see it as something that they are not proud of, I mean, anything you do in hidden is not so good. So if you don't want your partner to see that the person masturbates and the person would only do it when the partner is not there, the person is pretending, but that pretense can help the person to stop it. You know, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I disagree with you.
Yeah, of course, you can disagree all the time or anytime because now your question you ask is what I'm trying to answer. So,
But you answered it. You said that it can lead to good, better behavior, to better yourself.
of course,
So if we summarize, you can pretend if it only leads for you to better behavior, but sometimes
pretense is
pretense
very bad.
does not lead to better behavior. So you should think about why you want to hide this and if it would be possible to make it public what you're doing, public to the person.
Yeah, the thing is that
And be open about what you do.
anything bad is bad. What I'm trying to say is just to find, not to encourage people who pretend. Of course, it is only a clown or somebody who is afraid that pretends. Why would you pretend about something? If you want to do something, don't be double-faced about it.
Just do it.
Do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But we are saying that a lot of people pretended from the beginning, and because of that pretense, they see themselves changing drastically. There are people who pretend, oh, honey, where are you? They lie that they are in the library. They then realize that the honey is coming to the library. They run, go and go to the library and start reading. You know, when they do this thing often, they can even change and start reading. You know what I mean?
I don't think so.
There are people who are so disorganized in their house, they don't sweep their house. But when they hear that their loved one is coming, you see them wake up immediately, they clean everywhere. When they keep doing this kind of thing, it can even help to make them change.
No, I think change only comes from within, not from pretense.
You're 100% correct. This
If
is
you
not to
want to
say
change,
that,
you just change. Like you
yeah.
want. If you don't want to, you don't change. So thank you very much for your attention. Like, subscribe, and comment what you think about pretense, competition, and jealousy. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Bye
so much.
bye.
Bye.
The things you said did not make sense. Like in reality, not in